G'day, welcome back to the channel. I've been missing for a while, and that's because my fiance and I made a baby. And since the baby's starting to get bigger and starting to move around a bit, the Minister of War and Finances, also my fiance, has decided that our baby needs a baby jail. So that's what we're going to be doing today. You can buy this exact plan on my Etsy page for $479. It's very inclusive. But before I crack into that, I've got to get myself some room to work, which means moving all my tools back into those toolboxes. But I'm not going to make you sit there and watch me do it. And if that's not worth a like, hopefully the rest of the build is. First up, I've set up some gear to break down the 240 by 45 construction grade timber that I've got. Old mate I bought it off told me it was Pacific blackbutt and it was worth a pretty penny. But he was flogging it off on Marketplace, so I reckon it was just a sales technique. Looks like Maranti to me, so I told him that and got it for more like the price of a dirty tarnished penny or something. Anyway, enough about that. You've just seen me cut up the balusters. Now I'm doing the top bottom rails as well as the stiles, and that'll cover about 80% of what we need. Righto, this is what we've got so far. I've got 36 of these balusters at 660 long. They're about 42 by 42. They're squares at the moment, but I'm going to borrow an idea of Honest Work Designs, I think it was called. I saw her video on YouTube. I really like the look of that, so I'm going to run with that. If you haven't seen her page before, check it out. She makes some really cool stuff. Moving along, we've got the side of the frames. They're 660 along as well, same as the balusters, and we'll put a tenon on the end of those, same as the balusters. Then we've got the top and bottom rails for the long side and the short side. These couple here are 800mm long, and these are 1380. I've got to cut a whole heap of these tenons, and every single one needs to be exactly the same. So I figured I better build a jig. That'll keep things nice and consistent. I'm using some 17mm ply I had left over from a job to make a box that'll go over the fence and make it easy to slide the jig along. Now I'm just making a nice tall jig fence so there's plenty of contact for the stiles and balusters as well as anything else I might need to make in future. It's super important that I keep checking everything for square, otherwise we'll have dramas later. You'll see here I've decided to screw this down without glue, and that's just in case I have to put some packers behind it down the track to make sure everything stays nice and square to the table. Just like that, right on the money. Now I'm just cutting up a couple of stiffeners. They'll also work as a handle while I'm using it. Pretty happy with the first test. I've set it so the tenon ends up as wide as my 12mm chisel, just to make cutting the mortises a bit easier. Now it's time for the real deal. All 36 balusters, plus the 8 stiles. And once I've done that, I'll adjust the fence to cut the shoulders. Tell you what, you got to be careful with these little offcuts. They are moving and they sting when they hit you. I found little bits of timber all the way over near my work ute when I was done. I've made the tenon so it suits the chisel on the other way as well, so it's 12mm on one side, 25 on the other. Should make things a bit easier later on. After all that, I think these came up really well. Now it's time to turn them into octagons. It was about here somewhere where I started regretting the decision to opt for the octagonal shaped balusters. I've still got to sand these bloody things. Anyway, no sense talking about it, better crack on. I've got all these offcuts and no idea what to do with them. So, if you got an idea, let me know down below. If you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know I love finding somebody else to do the jobs that I don't wanna. And this time, Steph was more than happy to take one for the team. What a legend. While she's doing that, I'm gonna start setting out for these mortises. Haven't quite figured out exactly how I'm gonna do them, but I was thinking at the time, I'll try and make a jig for me trimmer. I'll give you a hot tip, it was not a good idea. See, what'd I tell you? Bad idea. Fortunately, I've still got all my appendages. After throwing a bit of a wobbly, I decided nothing for it but to do it the old-fashioned way. Hammer and chisel, baby. Now that I've got the stiles connected to the top and bottom rail, it's time to try the balusters. And while it might look super tedious, I actually quite enjoyed this bit. I found it quite cathartic. But I don't have all the time in the world, so unfortunately I'm going to have to come up with a better plan than a hammer and a chisel. I just realised I've made a bit of a mistake. I've glued this panel together, but I forgot to sand the insides and all around before gluing it all together. So now it's going to be really difficult to sand. So moving forward, what I'm going to do is sand all this down with an initial sand before I put it all together and do any work on it, just so there's less sanding to do while it's all together. Also, I was thinking these long rails I was going to cut tenons on the end of and put mortises in here and glue it all together so it was all stuck together with joinery, but after doing some reflection, I think maybe the cop might be a bit hard to maneuver around houses through hallways and stuff. So I'm thinking now I will probably cut them a bit shorter, not do the mortise and tenons, and fix them together with fixings, just so that I can pull it apart and reassemble it into the room that it's got to go into. Anyway, that's the plan moving forward. Let's get it. Woo! After all that work with the chisel and the sander, I've come up with an idea to do the mortises a bit better. I'm going to get me some Forstner bits. Yep, that's definitely the go. Forstner bits for the win. Should have thought of it days ago. After a couple of days spent bent over this table like a greyhound trying to have its way with a Pomeranian, I finally got 80 mortises and 80 tenons all done. Now for the fun bit, stick them all together. Gee, she took some doing, but I got 4 panels. Couple of them have a few high spots like this. Don't know if you can see that shadow there. Just a little bit high there, so I'm just going to jump back on the sander quickly and sand them down flat. And then we can jump on the next bit. Holy smokes, they fit. How good is that? I don't think clamps are going to cut it for a permanent solution, so I whipped around to Bunnings and picked these up instead. I'll countersink the heads with my shiny new Forstner bit, then run an 8.5mm drill bit through the middle to suit the shank of the bolt, and then the threaded nut insert needs a 10mm hole. That doesn't look too bad, does it? Now that they're all stuck together, it's time to start thinking about legs. I had a couple of ideas, either square, octagonal, or be real flash, and go octagonal on an angle. Let me know down below what you think would look better. While you marinate on that, I'll start making a base and an adjustable frame for the mattress to sit on. Firstly cutting some stock to size, then I'll cut some recesses to accept some slats, and then finally, I'll cut the slats. Looking back now, I could have done this a whole lot easier just using square stock and sitting the slats on top, but this looks fancy, and this is a fancy cot, so I really am glad I went the extra mile. Coming up to the home straight now, time to make the base and put the legs on. Just setting up to do some half flaps for this base. It's a strong joint and it's not going to be seen, so it doesn't have to be too pretty. We're nearly there, it's time for legs. With some help of outside influence, we ended up deciding to go the octagonal shape in a vertical orientation. Seems to flow quite nicely and suit the whole build. Does look like I've just glued these down, but I have also got a 100mm batten screw from the top down just to give them some extra strength. Got a bit soggy for a minute there, so after a quick costume change, it's time to put the adjustable base in. I'll just use the same fixing method that I used for the side. It's taken some doing, but I got it rolled, yeah! Adjustable height's in. You can see that there. Can drop down to here when Bub gets a bit bigger. Australian standards say that from the top of the mattress, which will be about there, to here, has to be 400mm minimum when it's at its highest point, and 600 when it's at its lowest point to the top as a minimum. So we've got that sorted. Now just got to pull her apart, give her a quick little sand, check for defects, and give it an oil. And it's good for bedtime. Yeah. After all this time and effort into this cot, I just looked at the end result and I thought it's still just missing something. So I jumped onto Canva and designed this and got it made up. It says crafted with love by Daddy. Yeah, that's a bit cute, isn't it? The plan's to have it sit somewhere like that, but it's got these sharp edges on it. So I'm gonna have to make a border out of timber so I can recess it and sit it there so it's a little bit safer for Bubba so she doesn't hit a little melon when she's playing around. Then we can oil it. Now I've already marked this one out, but I did it video it in time lapse and I thought a lot of people probably don't know how to find the center of a circle. So I'm going to trace the edges of this all the way around. I'm going to draw a couple of straight lines, doesn't matter where. I believe they're called vectors. So I'm going to find 100mm on this so it's easy to find the center. So just across the circle like that, mark halfway. So it doesn't matter what measurement you use as long as you find halfway. Do the same over here. Find one 100mm from edge to edge, just for easy maths. Bang, mark 50, done. Then get a square. This one's way too big for the job, but it'll do for me right now. Put the base along this line that we just marked. Draw a right angle off that mark, both sides. Just like that. And those two intersecting points is the center of a circle. that's the finished piece. I actually had planned on using this as a tester, but it actually looks pretty good. I quite like the narrow border. I do have a little bit of damage here that I'll have to fix up, but that's definitely repairable. I quite enjoy the little narrow border around that, so I reckon that's going to end up being the finished deal. Happy days. Finally, it's time to pull her apart and get it oiled, then get it into the house. I'm spewing here. The surround for the plaque snapped on me when I was trying to screw it down, so I ended up just having to clamp it and glue it and hope for the best. Fingers crossed it turns out okay. I'll oil a couple of panels while I'm waiting for it to dry. Haha, it worked. Now to put a horn on a jellyfish. Me neighbour Flamin' Harry's rolled round to say g'day. We call him Flamin' Harry because he loves to say Flamin'. I'm pretty sure his name's Harry. Anyway, he's a great bloke and I was happy to have a chat. Holy, it's finally done. It's moving day, baby. Let's get her done. This has been my longest video by far, so if you stuck through to the end, thanks so much for the support. I really appreciate it. Do us a solid, comment below and let me know if you think I could have done anything better or anything I need to change. Cheers, legends.